Let's look at an example of the creation of temporary current assets when there's a level production function. And to do this example, which is somewhat simplified but captures the essence of what's important here, we'll consider Yawakazi Motorcycle Company. This company is assumed to have sales that are seasonal. In important part, they don't sell very many motorcycles during the winter. Motorcycle sales peak when the weather gets good, and they drop during the October to March period. Having said that, making a motorcycle is there's a lot of fixed equipment involved, and in order to meet that seasonal demand, they have reached the decision that they want to use a level production method so that every month they produce the same number of motorcycles, even though they don't sell as many during the winter. And the result's going to be a fluctuating inventory level and also fluctuating accounts receivables that we'll see a little later. So it's a first step to estimating what the current assets are going to be for this company over time, for making these projections. The first step is to estimate what the sales are going to be, make a forecast of sales. So the company's done that, and we see that there's very little sales, no sales at all during January and February. The sales are going to peak in the summer in May, June, and July. There'll be 2,000 units sold each May, June, and July. So over the course of the whole year, if we add up all of this, we would find $9,600 in units. We're selling them these motorcycles for $3,000 each. They're going to be $28 million, $28.8 million in sales over the course of the year. Having said that, the company's decided on level production. If you take 9,600 divided by 12 months, you get production levels of 800 units every month. The beginning inventory, in this case, we're going to look at October through September. We're assuming the beginning inventory in October was 800 units. As a result, given this, when we make sales in October, we have 800 units beginning inventory, we produce another 800 units, we sell 300 units, the beginning plus the production minus the sales gives us ending inventory of 1,300 units at the end of October. That 1,300 units then becomes the beginning inventory level for November, where we produce again 800 units. Now, if we look back at our sales projections, we're going to sell 150 units. We now have ending inventory at the end of November of 1,950, again by adding the beginning inventory level plus the production level minus the sales level. That now becomes the beginning inventory for December, and we go on with this same process right through the year. So our production, highlighted here in red, is constant, 800 units. Our sales level changes in accordance with the sales forecast, and as a result, our ending inventory levels rise and fall because sales and production aren't matched. We'll notice here that as long as we are selling fewer units than we produce, selling less than 800, our inventory is rising. So from the beginning here all the way through March, we are observing this increase in inventory, but After March, we don't have that increase. We are now selling more units, 1,000 units. We're selling more than we are producing, and so our inventories begin to decline, and they continue to decline into August. And then in September, again, our sales levels are less than our production levels. We're going to take this schedule of production and inventory, and we're going to create a cash budget. This cash budget, it looks complicated here at first. We're going to go through one month. We'll start with the month of October, and then we'll extend to the second month. Once you understand the first 2 months, it's really easy from that point on. In October, we're selling from our first item here, sales units. There were 300 sales units. We're going to collect $3,000 per unit. That's the sales amount. And so our sales, our dollar sales, are $900,000. This is shown in millions, $0.9 million. Our credit policy is that we're going to sell for 50% cash, and we'll allow 1 month to collect the other 50%. So our $900,000 in sales generates cash receipts in October, half of that amount, or $450,000. We're also going to collect the previous month's sales. We assume that in the previous month, there's the assumption, it's written right here, assume September sales of $1.5 million, which means we're going to collect that as well in October. So our total cash receipts for October, while we sold $900,000, we're going to actually collect $1,200,000 because we're collecting some of September's, we're collecting all of September's receivables in October. These are our cash receipts. We also have cash payments. If you go back to the previous table, you would notice that we had 800 units that we're selling or that we're producing every month. In order to produce that, it's a cost of $2,000 per unit. So every month, this is all the way across here, every month we have production costs of $1.6 million. There's also some overhead that's constant every month. If you look across, you'll see 0.4 or $400,000 of overhead every month. There's some other costs that aren't monthly, that aren't stable. We're paying taxes on our earnings, and this isn't tied in anywhere in particular to, this is just another assumption. You're not going to find this in one of the other tables, but we're paying taxes of $300,000 every 3 months, so we're going to reduce that requires cash. And then I'll circle this in blue out here at the end. Once a year we're paying a dividend, and that dividend at this point is $1 million. So these are all cash disbursements, so cash payments. In October, in blue here, our cash payment is $2.3 million. We've only collected $1.2 million. So the difference between what we collect and what we pay is our cash flow. In this case, the cash flow is negative. We collected, or we paid $1.1 million more than we collected. So that takes us down to this cash budget that we have at the bottom. The cash budget in each instance is going to look at the cash receipts and cash payments schedules above, take the net, that's the cash flow that starts this analysis. In October, cash flow was negative $1.1 million. We're assuming that we have $250,000 in cash at the beginning, and we also assume throughout this, you'll notice that we never let our cash drop to zero. We always have to have enough cash around to be able to make whatever payments are due. So we're never going to let that number drop to zero. At the end of October, we had $250,000. We spent $1.1 million. In order to do that, we had to get cash from somewhere, and that cash is coming from a loan, a monthly loan of $1.1 million. So we spent 1.1. We started with $250,000. We want to end with 250. We're going to have to borrow $1.1 million. So that's what we do here. The cumulative amount that we've borrowed, we assume we had borrowed nothing as of the end of September. Now we've had to borrow $1.1 million. That's the cumulative amount right here. And so our ending cash is now 0.25, and we move on to November. In November, we go through the same process. Let me clean up a little bit here. In November, we now are selling 150 units. We each at $3,000 per unit, so that would be $900,000. I'm sorry, $450,000. We're going to collect half of that in cash now. All right. In addition, the amount that we've sold in October, we sold $900,000. We collected half of it. Now we're going to collect the other half. So that's the collection of the receivables that's outstanding, $450,000. So we have cash receipts of 0.675. Our production activities, the production costs are exactly the same as they were in October. We're still producing 800 motorcycles a month. We therefore have negative cash flow. The difference, I'll put it in blue, the difference between what we collect, what we spend, is the cash flow for the month, a negative cash flow of $1.325 million, and we're going to have to borrow that full amount. So our monthly loan, we borrowed $1.325 million. We now have borrowed, circle it in red, we've now borrowed $2,425,000. We go through that same process every period. Doing that, we'll end up creating this cash budget that we see at the bottom, and we notice, not surprisingly, that we're having, as long as our sales are less than our, go up here to the top, we'll just clean up in general here. As long as our sales are less than our production, our cash flows are running negative, and we're financing that by borrowing at the bank. As soon as, when we get to April, our cash flow begins to turn positive because we're selling more units than we're producing, and so now we're able to begin paying off our loans. And we'll do that, we'll pay that loan down, so the loan peaks here in March at $9.4 million. We're going to pay that whole loan amount off. By the time we get to July, we will have the loan paid off, and we're back to a zero balance. And now our cash levels, which we see out here at the end, our cash levels start to rise. From the right-hand corner there that I just underlined, the cash levels begin to rise. What we would see in this forecast, we'll go back and look at it, we'll just review the elements of it here. We've got a buildup in accounts receivable and cash. The sales forecast is based on the assumptions that we had in table 6.1. The cash receipts are 50% collected at the time of sale, 50% is an accounts receivable that's collected in the subsequent month, and the cash budget that we create is a comparison between those receipts that we have, the cash receipts, and the payments that are made, the payment schedule. That determines the cash flow. The cash flow determines how much cash we need at any given point in time. We borrow to fill the gaps. That's the basic paradigm that we're working in.